Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. A total of 266 men have held the title of Saint Hello Peter. There have been 266 popes in the last 2,000 years, and they have all been white. More with about 1.3 billion adherents to the Roman Catholic Church today. But you know what? The most rapidly expanding group of no longer are Catholics found in Europe. This is within Africa. How come the color black? Persons occupy the seats. However, on no occasion will regal seat. Something is amiss here. It was intended this way. Secret blueprints that predates all cathedrals by a greater amount. Effective than a sermon and beyond more awkward than any admission ever said in a low voice box. Because this is the reality that they will be quiet about it. Some popes were black. They have vanished. Now, on to the thought of an evil pope horrifies the Holy See. In the minutes to come right now, I'm going to tell you 10 reasons why there is still a pope in the Catholic Church, white for ages. While others' justifications are not acceptable, there are also startling mysteries concealed in the Vatican vaults. Not to mention that there's a single cause for certain will alter your perspective faith always. However, prior to our arrival in that location, consider this. If the Church asserts its universal applicability by asserting that be the earthly embodiment of God's voice, then why has it been rejected time and time again? Generation to allow God to dark complexion? Be prepared. The reason being that after there is no way to start once again. Reason number 10. The initial black popes from history. Not at all share this with you at Sunday school, but history is unrelenting. Among them were popes who lived during the Renaissance depicted holy persons as having light complexion and the eyes are a shade of blue, significantly prior to the papacy son emblem of regal European and white first place. Among Christians, the highest office held sway over African men. Pope Victor I is a good place to begin. During the years 189 AD, and was born in Afro-Roman Africa, Victor possessed a severe protector of religion, advocating for Latin from Greek to Latin for use in Roman liturgy, an influential factor in shaping the Church all the time. However, his picture will come up in a Google search, the likelihood of seeing a whitewashed creating art. Though he appears to be an African man, had been. Pope Miltiades was another figure, to be called Mechiad, as its leader, in the midst of a pivotal moment when Christianity was formally sanctioned by emperor. My name is Constantine. No, Miltiades was more than a lone survivor. His role was to connect authority and oppression, not to mention, he is, as well, lived in Africa. A conclusion. Pope Gelasius, towards the end of the 5th century, I was king. It was fearlessly asserted that the power of the Church had more influence than monarchs. It was authored more than 100 letters that shaped biblical principles and goals. He was a participant in most significant popes throughout the early Christendom, and his position a dark shade. What then transpired? What gives? That place honored African cultures is it now? For what reason do holy books and stained windows made with glass portray them with European features? Why? Because the Church revised its unique narrative. Empires in Europe expanded. The notion of African leadership evolved into uncomfortable. Nobody wanted a black pope. How white people's spiritual first place. As a result, they deleted. They kept the names out. They created artwork the people's faces. Their rewrite included historical texts. Their assurance was that which no young black boy grew up in, the trust would ever consider donning a papal hat. After that, Erassia was finished. The papal entrance was open, crashed down on a black skin. 10th justification. The College of Cardinals is Eurocentric from the start. Well, the Pope isn't just show up. An exclusive group chose him, organization known as the College of Cardinals. Finally, the system subtly prevents variety from entering. In this very moment, over 200 cardinals can be found in the entire planet. But you know what? Most people the ability to vote. The individuals who truly selecting a new pope is ultimately up to the people from Europe, regardless of the fact that the Americas, Africa, and the majority of the world's Roman Catholic people, Europe, is still in a position to the throne. You ought to give that some thought. Asia. Africa has the most rapid expansion in terms of the religion of the Catholic Church. Nation-states such as Nigeria, plenty of people are flocking to the churches. Congo is home to records show that priests are being ordained, quantitative data. Yet when the time comes to choose their guarding the next pope, they are outran. Put this into. More than 60% of voter cardinals originate in Europe or have ties to countries that hierarchies of power in Europe. That setup is piled high. Mainly, it's made to keep customs rather than conveying the truth. Venus, when clerics from the African diaspora their way up their frequently formal meetings, symbols for variety, not serious candidates for the regal seat. Concerning the timing of the papal conclave, the likelihood of Kozan prior to the onset of smoke color white. No, there is no conspiracy. This is structure. Because it's pervasive and efficient since it provides the inclusion, seems to be a part of providing. Assurance not include. Take this corpse out of, oh my God. The circle is self-contained. One group honoring black leadership at a long way, but never permitted to take the helm from one that center. Reason number 8. Racism in silence. Up the chain of command in the Vatican, the teachings of the Catholic Church on love, unity, and camaraderie. Nevertheless, concealed from view behind the old walls of the Vatican, there are peaceful chats that nobody is willing to record. Simply put, racism isn't explicitly stated in canon law, which is ingrained in executive suites. The thing is, dark nobility has advanced in the ranks. While some turn into cardinals, there have been a few that have gone as far as discussed in secrecy as papal potential competitors. Now consider Cardinal Francis Arenzio, originally from Nigeria. Back in the early aughts, he was extremely competent, well-respected, and incredibly religious. However, at that moment arrived, the assistants inexplicably went missing. Cardinal Peter is another option. Ashanti of Ghana. His vocabulary includes 6 languages linguistics, attended the University of Rome, and serving as an official of the highest rank within the Vatican. While he washeralded as a linchpin between from one culture to another. Then again, when the papal throne was empty, he was ousted in a row. Why? Due to the fact that inside there is a subtle backlash in the Vatican. I don't use encoded language to express outright racism. Too little experience for him. The man is excessively ahead of the curve. His portrayal is inaccurate for an occasion such as this. In other words, he's a dark shade. No protest banners, no derogatory language, quiet discussion, quiet approval, smiles that imply never ever. Even some high-ranking officials have admitted off historical evidence that a black pope might thought by some higher-ups to be excessively upsetting, very daring, transcend the past and into the present entire planet. Therefore, religious institutions keep on elevate black religion, but downplay black leadership. It celebrates people of color for joyfully serving others, enduring hardship, and not make a decision. As a result, the Vatican conveys an understated, yet impactful message. It is you can worship on one's knees yet hope for the best in order to sit on regal seat. Argument number 7. White supremacy incorporated into religious symbols. Examine the stained glass windows of any church, sculptures, paintings, and glass. In Jesus, you will notice flowing blonde hair, heavenly hosts, a Virgin Mary with a flawless skin, as pristine as the sky. Yet this is the truth. These portrayals are inaccurate. They're done on purpose, anticipated outcomes. During the Renaissance and art in the modern era, the Church has instructed the devout not merely in matters of heaven and damnation, but concerning the pious, and most people do. Furthermore, for eons, the visual did not include blackness, divine language. Within the medieval throughout Europe, the night was linked with be condemned, sin with demons. The darkness was associated with the color black, and to religious teaching. Regardless of how seldom it occurs, Saint Benedict and other black saints emerged. More, their complexion frequently gradually became less dark, or their tails laid to rest. Theological writings from the 17th and 18th centuries. Over the years, Africans were characterized as inferior, or cursed, resonating with the warped religion as a rationale for slavery and empire building. Let me clarify. This is about racism. This pertains to the elevation of whiteness. When the representation of divinity is steadfastly displaying a white leadership image logically adheres to. Thus the concept of a black pope, it conflicts with a long history of behavioral conditioning, not merely for Europeans throughout the world house of worship. Put it in your mind. In the event that the heavenly has traditionally been depicted in a negative light, is that an indication of who deserves to stand in for the Almighty? It states that being black is assist, but it is unable to rule. That is, up until religious institution faces this visual heritage, no amount of black pope will ever be considered. I don't on account of ideology, but on account of many years of purposeful design. Motive number 6. Colonial Christians taught people all throughout the globe to see white, sacred. To comprehend the rationale behind, never held the office of pope decipher. The origins of Christianity, adopted as a weapon during the era of colonization. At the time, Europe and its allies swarmed throughout Asia, Africa, through the Americas. They conveyed more than weapons and avarice. They transported clergy, books of the Bible, and rituals of baptization. It was a church, frequently the pioneering institution to join colonized territories. This set the stage for authority over politics by initially asserting guidance from on high. However, the dark truth, their interpretation of Christianity disseminated, wasn't love for everyone. The experience was dominance in Europe encased in Holy Book. Evangelists informed African groups of people whose indigenous faiths were evil force. They were against religious dancing, damaged temples, and rewrote substantial portions, values, and principles. "Your gods," they exclaimed, "not true, you have wicked ways. Just a select few of true. God exists." However, their true intentions were declared. Only our understanding of God is accurate, as well as the fact that he resembles us. Classrooms at each colony, students brutally assaulted for expressing legends about the cursed skin of some language, preached the gospel of redemption's European ethnicity and a European accent. Also, although a crucifix was hoisted high above them, the inhabitants stood genuflecting in front of it. It didn't constitute a spiritual guide. The experience was dominate one's mind. At this point, the effect is still felt all across the world, even after all these centuries. Continents continue to link military might, innocence, sanctity, and a pristine complexion, a combination of sin, enslavement, and total stillness. That is, not the word of God. Wow, that's repressive media. Furthermore, there's absolutely occurrence that the religious institution has not yet crowned a black pope, since having black leaders would lead to the deceit they have propagated for many years. The deity uses a language common in Europe, rules in accordance with an EU theorist. Reason number 5, the dread of a worldwide change in visual representation. A pope who is black wouldn't merely could have a different color tone, if he were a shift in perspective. Over the course of 2000, the pope's public persona has been emblem of European might and heritage regarding religious supremacy. You can't call him a human dressed in pristine white robes. He symbolizes religion on a worldwide scale. The spiritual leader of 100,000 souls. Right now, picture that face African. To the select group within the Vatican, a large number of conservative groups throughout the Americas and Europe. That's not limited to Neacy. It's not even possible to imagine a pope who is black would do more than just established custom. He planned to move the focus of gravitation, shifting its focus from Rome to sub-Saharan Africa. Imagine him as a living, breathing in opposition to all that the colonial church taught. A tangible constant that righteousness isn't light, that authority is not limited to Latin ancestry, that goddess is a non-European accent when speaking. The old guard is terrified of that, because an ill-fated pope could pose a threat by appealing for a considerable amount of time injustices. He could be candid regarding religion's complicity with slavery, racism, colonization, and racial inequality. He may decide to with regard to reform, restitution, and portrayal, beyond the confines of denomination, but throughout the whole worldwide structure. He may introduce a fresh liberation-based theology that truthfulness, fairness. What about individuals who have erected dynasties based on dominance and opacity that poses a danger? Not that he absolutely would meet the requirements, but he simply isn't. Remain quiet. An ebony pope would represent the abolition of white supremacy and moral supreme power. However, for individuals who insist on authority masquerading as virtue, that's the genuine dread. A fourth justification, covert papal politics and power deals. Typically, when individuals consider that they envision a divinely inspired pope, holy ballots, and a haze of white smoke billowing in reverent quiet. In reality, though, prayer alone does not determine who gets to future pope. That's political language. For you, the University of Cardinals isn't some kind of holy haven. It's a place of strategic conflict. For each, alliances and agreements abound at conclave, and secret agreements. Nations lobby, competing groups within the church blocks emerge. As is the case in every political election. Consider this for a moment. In a system for which power, connections, and entry make all the decisions, and the majority of, do cardinals of African or black color stand? Regarding the beyond, in contrast to their European rivals, a large number of African politicians lack the same privileged relationships. They don't belong to the elite of Roman society. They skip meals over the world, either with diplomats or by funding Catholic organizations' academic institutions. They also lack the support of a Catholic lobbying effort in Eastern or Western Europe. No matter how high regard Even after they've taken the helm leading with honesty and foresight, they step into already outnumbered and defeated, the conclave paid for. Listen to those on the inside who have held incognito, encouraging the subsequent numerous years pass before the Pope is confirmed. In the shadows, those entrances, their doors aren't really black and white, prospective employees. Thus, as the entire globe observes, the Sistine Chapel is amid a cloud of smoke. Considering that the Holy Spirit conjured at a decision, individuals fail to notice the several years of nonviolent opposition that it was never going to be a black man. Faith is irrelevant here. In regards to control, furthermore, within a political system, never loses and representation loses ground. Thirdly, profound psychological training of the devout. Of all formidable obstacles aren't material, it's crazy. On top of that, throughout their religion has been influencing people to that purity appears white. In light of the first year of catechism, they are shown pictures. Jesus, who had a fair complexion and luscious locks. Mary possessed exquisite European features. Heavenly hosts, prophets, disciples, pristine, radiant, and heavenly white. It isn't safe. It's a mental thing software development, gradually, over and again, encourages believers to embrace their whiteness as the light is good. And it brings us nearer to God's salvific light is good. But darkness is evil. This face. And it's not black. Now, consider the possibility of spending your formative years there from one generation to another. What occurs when you are instructed to respect a stranger who will never resemble you? Impacting self-esteem is just one aspect. It deforms perception. Research on faith-based mental health studies have verified this. All throughout the world, especially in largely African American or communities of color, individuals implicitly link religion power in relation to race. Consequently, in cases where proposed a black pope as provided, including a sizable number of black Catholics, have difficulty embracing it. This is not due to how reasoning, but due to a lifetime bias that one has within. Conditioning is performed at deep. Thus, to this day, when Anne and the African Cardinal, AI, talk about a possible pope begins to circulate, it appears unprofessional. Is all set to go? Actually, everyone has received instruction to remain unprepared. Furthermore, while as long as the church's resources keep flowing shown, in that, stories visuals remaining silent, defying it, devoted will be held captive by deceit. Being close to God requires skin tone. Also, a black pope is in some way less revered, less justified, not as holy. It's more than just racism, colonialism, in the spiritual sense. As for the second justification, the church is still European customs. The Roman Catholic faith asserts itself as an inclusive faith that transcends national boundaries, peoples, every culture, every language. But looking at its operation, the reality emerges. Continuity across Europe dominates the field. In light of architecture to the ceremonies of the Vatican, the way from its syntax to its top brass, their religion has maintained a quite Eurocentricone's identity. The Latin Mass is worth a try, recognized as the sole acceptable format for worship. The fact that numerous longtime supporters of the practice strive to bring it back to life, and ignoring culturally engaged evocative African religious practices, very sentimental too, and the Caribbean too raw, or too boisterous. Black liturgy that includes percussion, dance and native languages are frequently criticized for strictly controlled. Their designation is interfere with the right kind of worship. But how exactly can one define proper? It denotes Western European. This kind of behavior conveys a written communication. I respect your faith, but my culture isn't. Now consider this. A church that refuses to even acknowledge African liturgy with its expression ever embrace the reign of African leaders. This is not possible. Given that promoting a black pope would entail facing hundreds of years of cultural bias, unequal power, and favoritism first place. Changing the wording of the nature of holiness as defined. Taking up a religion that is actually worldwide, in terms of both population and at the helm. Also, for a large number of Vatican-closed group, that's an excessive amount of shift, overly much reality. This is why, instead, continue to provide the impression that the Church in a way that is undisclosed while maintaining the keys that are secured in European use their hands. To start with, the Vatican is worried coming to a halt. Is furious the middle of everything, under the saris, ceremonies and respectful unspoken, a harsh reality resides. A dark would pose a grave danger to the very base by the Vatican. Simply said, once a black guy occupies the position of Saint Pata, all of the money that the church has invested, centuries-old structure starts to change. Why? Simply said, that man wouldn't stand for the spiritual supreme power. His fame had spread over the world, of fairness, legacy, and transformation. The Pope may ask for the facts regarding the church's part in slave trade over the Atlantic trade. The Vatican might be compelled to face the fact that it benefited the conquerors even as black people were shackled. The question he may pose is, what happened to the stolen wealth and why payment for damages has never been broached? He might go through the records. He could particular individuals. He could deliver speeches about spark uprisings all throughout the world down south. He may even reorganize responsibility, authority, and assets from all the way from Africa to Europe, from the Italian capital Rome to the African nation of Rwanda, from little towns to grand cathedrals, custom to reality. Plus, a lot of people in the highest-ranking church officials include terrifying. Since the beginning of time, the church's use of control misleading impression, an optical illusion proclaiming purity shirts herself in pure white. Such direction has to emanate from, they are Westerners. The world's southern regions are deep within one's soul rather than on top of it. Pope Black Peter would destroy that illusion, given just one public appearance, just one speech, and just one good fortune. His arrival would herald a fresh age in which the downtrodden do not bow but stand up. That's more than just a new security detail. The world's order has shifted. Plus, that's for what reasons, regardless of how dedicated, how appropriately suited, or how a Vatican might back a black candidate, dreads the chaos that would ensue if he were elected. I mean, not only in the church but all the whole planet. You can't miss the truth. This goes beyond matters of faith. This is issues of authority, past events, and permission as a leader. When will the Pope become black? No way. Not until the church is prepared to face the truth despite its attempts to conceal it. Stay tuned for more enlightening content like this. More secrets they would rather you not know should be aware of. Leave a comment below, informing from what part of the globe you are viewing this.